So we are discussing support vector machine. Support vector machine, as you know, is very popular so far the classification task is concerned, and out of which the linear SVM. Linear SVM really an outstanding classification technique, right? Because it has many advantages which we have already discussed, and also we know how to build a classification model using linear SVM algorithm. So linear SVM is fine. It is fine because it can handle, right, the data with large dimension. It also can classify the data with the highest accuracy compared to other classification techniques, and it does not suffer from overfitting as well as underfitting problem. Also, this linear SVM is useful to classify whether binary class data or it is a multi-class data. So you can understand, so definitely it is good. Only one problem is that the linear SVM can work with numerical data only. So integer data or real data type. It cannot work with other type of data like ordinal data or rank data. But this limitation, you know, is not a serious limitation because in many real life application, the data that needs to be processed, they are the real valued data. That's fine. So linear SVM is fine. In addition to this, linear SVM has one problem. The problem is it can work only on the data which are linearly separable, right? On the other hand, if the data is not linearly separable, then this linear SVM you can apply, but it will give you very, right, inferior result. The result is not so accurate. Now in the last class, we have started a discussion about what do you mean by linearly separable data and when a data will be termed as linearly not separable data. So here the idea is for the data which are not linearly separable, for that data also we can think about hyperplane. As you know, hyperplane is the key point which is used to divide the data belongs to two different classes. Now in case of nonlinear data, the hyperplane that required is a nonlinear hyperplane. In case of linearly separable data, hyperplane is linear. For example, if your data is with two-dimensional attributes, then the hyperplane takes the form of a linear equation. On the other hand, if it is not linearly separable, then even in the two-dimensional data, the equation of hyperplane will be a non-linear equation. So equation of an equation with two or more degrees. So this is a problem, and you know we have solved this linear SVM problem assuming that it is a linear and also assuming that equation of the hyperplane takes the form w dot x plus b equals to 0. But w dot x plus b equals to 0 is only for the linearly separable data. Now in this slide, figure B and figure C shows how the nonlinear hyperplane that is required to divide the data which are linearly not separable. In figure B, the equation of a hyperplane, it is again in two-dimensional plot. It looks like a hyperbola. On the other hand, in case of figure C, as we see, it is the equation of an ellipse. And you know what is the equation of an hyperbola and the equation of an ellipse. So now how to deal with this one? Now to deal with this problem, there are two concepts. One is the soft margin support vector machine. Another the technique which is called the kernel tricks. The soft margin support vector machine, if the data is not so linearly not separable, then it is good. But if the data really very, right, nonlinear form, then soft margin does not work better. But in that case, kernel trick is the best policy. And today we are going to learn about this concept of kernel trick. But before going to the concept of kernel trick, let us first start with the linearity and non-linearity in the expression of a hyperplane. As we see in the equation 30, this is the equation of a linear, right, equation in a linear form, linear representation. So it is a linear, right, and this is okay in 3 dimension, as you can understand. So this is the equation of a plane in 3D space. So the same idea can be extended if there is a n dimensional data. So w1 x1 plus w2 x2 plus w3 x3 plus dot 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 plus wn xn if the data are with n dimension. So linear form means these are simple variables multiplied by some weight coefficients, and that's all. On the other hand, the equation 31 is an example of a nonlinear equation. So this is an equation, nonlinear equation, is the equation of a degree 2. But here, as you see, w1 x1 square plus w2 x2 square, plus there is also, these are called mononomial. So x1 square, x2 square, or simply x1 multiplied by some weight coefficient, whatever. So it is a mononomial. But here, in addition to mononomial, there are few terms binomial like x1, x2, x1, x3. But there may be trinomial also, x1, x2, x3, and x1, x3, and then many more. So the equation, so far the nonlinear form is concerned, it is really very complex. Now, so these are the two forms, right? So equation 30 is a good example of a linear, right, form, and it is actually the linear hyperplane look like. And similarly, equation 31 maybe some nonlinear hyperplane equation it is there. Now here the idea is that how we can, right, we can work with nonlinearity of the hypersurface so that we can use this to classify our data. Now there is a concept. This concept actually the idea, the concept is called that data transformation. What is the concept of data transformation? The concept of data transformation is that if your data in your given, right, space are linearly not separable, then you can transform your data into some other space so that in other space the data is linearly separable. I can give you some examples so that you can understand how this transformation is useful. Okay, so this is the idea actually. This concept, it is simple to understand. It works also, but it will create a problem when your dimension of the data is too large. So what are the possibilities and what are the pros and cons? All these things we will discuss so far the data transformation is concerned. So data transformation concept is called the nonlinear mapping or absolute attribute transformation it is called. That means the data that is given to you is a fewer attributes, but you can transform the data into some other data set having large number of attributes. That means from lower dimension to higher dimension. Now another technique, the technique it is called kernel trick. That is also work fine for us. We will discuss about the kernel trick in details because it is the most obvious process to work with this one. Now let's come to the concept of nonlinear mapping or attribute transformation. Now here you can consider a 3D data. So 3D data will be, right, characterized with 3 values corresponding to 3 attributes like x1, x2 and x3. So any vector capital X, any vector, so it is capital X can be, right, described by these 3 components x1, x2, x3. Now can you tell me whether you can see my annotation which I am doing? My pen work.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
good. Yeah. So now, so this is the one, right, vector, and here or we can say this is the equation of a hypersurface in 3D space, right? And this equation is represented using this form. Okay, so this equation represent, and definitely this is a nonlinear equation. So having this one, we can transform this data. What are the transformation? As you see, I have used one transformation. This is the one function phi 1x, right? So this is simply a function, right? So it is a very simple function, linear function. We can say phi 1 x is equals to x1. Very simple. Another simple linear transformation is phi x. And this is definitely is not a simple linear transformation. It is a nonlinear transformation. These are another two nonlinear transformation. So here you can see we have considered 6 transformation functions. Right? 6 transformation function means that in place of x1 replace it z1, in place of x2 replace it z2, in place of x1 square replaced by z4, and in place of x1 x2 replaced by z5, and so on. Now if we replace, right, the values of in x space by the z space, we can say it is the z space, then what will happen? The same equation will be transformed into this form, right? So it is actually the expression of the hyperspace, but it is in z space. And in case of z space, how many attributes is required? 6 attributes is required. In case of x space, how many attributes were required? It was only 3 attributes were required. Now let's see what is the transformed equation. Your transform equation looks like this. This is the transform equation. Now what you can see, this transform equation very pretty simple, look like a linear transformation. So what we can conclude from this discussion? So we can conclude that if some data which is not linearly separable, but it is not linearly separable means it is separable by this form of hyperspace, and because of the transformation if we apply into the data, then the transformed data space is, right, linearly separable using this kind of hyperplane. So this is one important observation. So initial the data was in 3D space, so it is called the 3D input data, and we can do the nonlinear transformation, or it is attribute transformation or nonlinear mapping, so that our data will be, right, will be reduced into a 6-dimensional input data. So it is now 6D input data. So if we can do this kind of transformation, then what you can do, the same linear SVM technique can be applied. So what is an extra space is required? The extra space is that the input data, if it is defined with 3 attributes x1, x2, x3, do some nonlinear mapping, right, so that your data can be transformed into a linear space. Now here is a problem. The problem is that how to obtain these are the transformers for your problem, right? It is not an easy task. This is because, see, we have started little bit from the back. So we have obtained that, okay, this is my data if it is, and for this data, this is the equation of a hyperspace. So first you have to obtain the hypersurface, then only you can apply this transformation. Then you, okay, do the nonlinear input mapping, and then you have the linear SVM. Now the problem here is that, okay, how to obtain it? This is the problem. So this problem is, that is why if it very simple looks like, and if you can have some mechanism by which the transformation you can have it, then you can apply it directly. Now we'll see exactly, there is for every problem, you know, there is a solution. So for this problem also there is a solution. Anyway, we will find the solution while we will discuss about the kernel trick problem. But this is important that you can understand about that how the data can be transformed from a non-linear region to a linear region. And here is the idea exactly. So if this is the equation of a hypersurface, which will divide the two regions, one region for plus class, another region is minus class, and it is actually non-linear data or linearly not separable data. Now if we, so this is actually 2D space data. Now using some transformation, this data is transformed into, right, Z space. So it is defined by Z1 and Z2 only 2 dimension Z space actually, as Z in 2D space for example. And then as you can, after this transformation, those data is transformed in such a way that all this negative data is confined into this region, all the plus data is confined into this region, right? So some transformation mechanism makes the data transformed into this type, and as a consequence we can find a hyperplane which can divide the two regions. So this is the idea. So this is the concept of nonlinear mapping is concerned. Now let us proceed further about this so that we can understand this concept very clearly. Now here, this is the example of a hyperspace. What is the example? This example is nothing but the equation of a circle, right? So this is the equation of a circle. And here actually it is like this, equation of a circle look like, right? And so this is the equation of a hyperspace which divides the two regions. One region, if the data is in x1 and x2 plus 1, if they satisfy this condition, and otherwise this condition. So there are two class data, plus 1 class and minus 1 class. How they can be classified? By this classifier it is given the idea. Okay, so this is your hyperspace, right? Or it is we can say that it is a boundary which can divide the two regions, and definitely it is a nonlinear boundary. Now we can apply that nonlinear mapping, that means the Z transformation as I said, and then let's see how it looks like. So this equation can be written in this form also, no problem. It's very simple simplification. And then Z transformation I can apply here. This is the one Z1 and this is the another Z2 value. So here like phi 1 x, this is equals to this one, this is the Z1, and this phi 2 x, x2 square minus x2, this is equals to Z2. So this equation therefore can be expressed into the Z form which looks like. So this is the equation in the Z dimension. So this is a simple linear equation, as I said, the equation of a straight line, right, in the form ax plus by plus c equals to 0, right? So here again, if this is the equation of a boundary, and after the transformation, as I said about the data, so this data after the transformation, the linear boundary that can be obtained, which takes this form, it is like this, right? And all the data you see, it is in terms of Z1 and Z2, right? So Z1 and Z2, they have been expressed, but maintaining their level, because Z1 is X1 data converted to Z1 data, and the level of the class remains same. That is the concept, okay? So this is the example of a nonlinear mapping, as you can understand. So it is there. Now let's see the procedure. We have understood that, okay, how we can convert the data from a nonlinear, right, region to a linear region. What is the procedure? As I said that, okay, you have to find many phi 1s, right, or the transformation function look like. Now let's see what is the problem. The problem is that if the equation, that means your hyperspace, is only with few terms, then the finding the transformation really very easy. So in that case, only few phi transformation functions are required. But if your right data is too complex, the data is too complex in the sense that for that complex data, you need a boundary which can be with many monomials, many binomial terms, many trinomial terms, and many complex terms. Then definitely the number of phi transformation required is very large. Of course, how this phi transform can be obtained, that is also one question. But anyway, so this is very large, and it is mapping itself is a very tedious job if it is not infeasible actually. So mapping, although looks very simple with a toy examples, but for real life problems, it is really very difficult task for an engineer. Another thing is that what is the cost of mapping? As I said you, if the number of terms that is there is much higher or is a complex one, then the total number of phi function that is required, it is given as nh is actually is a combinatorial problem because it is huge number of phi transformation it is required. Now larger number of phi transformation means what? If your input data can be defined only say 3 attributes, but because of these high values of nh, the number of phi transformation can be very large. As a consequence, the number of attributes in a transform space will be very large. That means it will again invite the higher dimensional data solving problem. Now, although using SVM high dimensional data is not an issue, but cost of computation really it is a problem. So dimensionality problem, because okay, it is not an issue so far SVM is concerned, but anyway, so the cost of computation will increase definitely from 3D data to say maybe 10D data, then cost of computation will increase, and that is not desirable in many application, many critical application. So the dimensionality problem will arise because of the complex non-linearly separable data. As a consequence, it will also require demands high cost of computation. So this problem of nonlinear mapping, is although looks very simple to understand, but in real life application, if you want to implement it, there is a lot of problem to be addressed. Now, to address these problems again, the mathematician have coined one very good concept or terms. It is called the kernel trick concept. Actually, all support vector machine, as you have learned from my discussion, it is based on only mathematics, and so there is a mathematical manipulation and then solving some problem, and so it is a full of mathematics. Maybe it is solving a system of equations or expressing some equation of a hyperspace or calculating the distance or margin and everything. So this is the problem from mathematics only, from the geometry, from the optimization domain, from the other mapping or this kind of things are there. So here little bit enhancing this mathematical ability to solve the same problem, if we follow, then we will be able to win the nonlinearity problem so far the data classification is concerned. To do these things, there are two things to be learned. This is again the mathematical manipulation only. So two mathematical manipulation, one is called the dual formulation and another is called the kernel trick. Now probably you can recall I told once the primal representation and dual representation. An objective function, say y equals to fx, it has the dual representation. Dual representation means y dash is equals to f dash x. What is the f dash x or how f dash x is related to fx? So if f dash x is equals to 1 by fx, or if f dash x is equals to minus fx, then one is dual form of the others, right? So y equals to fx, it is the one form, and its dual form y dash equals to f dash fx. Now f dash x and fx, how they are related? As I said, f dash x equals to 1 by fx or f dash x equals to minus fx. Now, so there is a dual representation. And now in this duality concept, if the previous one is the maximization problem, then the latter become the minimization and vice versa. Similarly, there is also another formulation of the Lagrangian that we have already learned while we are discussing about the linear SVM. So Lagrangian L, as you know, so Lagrangian L is objective function plus Lagrangian multiplier and the all constant, and then summing up of all this. So L is equals to if the objective function is fx, so L equals to fx plus summation of all the constant over, so I equals to 1 to n. If there are n constant, then for each constant multiplied by the corresponding Lagrangian multiplier lambda I. So summation I equals to 1 to n Li lambda I dot the constant, the ith constant. So this is the Lagrangian form we have already discussed. Now for the same Lagrangian, we can have a dual formulation. That is what I want to say, a dual formulation. Then what is the relation between the primal formulation and dual formulation? As I said you, so maybe one is negative to others, or maybe one is a reciprocal to others, whatever. Now the concept is that how the dual formulation can help or can solve a problem. Now first we shall learn about what is the dual formulation techniques for the Lagrangian, that is already we have learned about for linear SVM, and then how using this dual Lagrangian formulation can help to solve non-linearly separable data. And that is actually the concept the kernel trick is used. Now in coming maybe 30 minutes or so, we are going to learn the two important concepts, the dual formulation and kernel tricks. So these two concepts are the key concepts to understand the concept of nonlinear SVM. So let us first start with the dual formulation of the Lagrangian. Now here again you can recall, so far our SVM hyperplane margin is concerned. So hyperplane margin means we have to find the weight parameters, so W matrix, and these are the constant that is given to you, right? So if there are n number of training data is given there, so n constant will be obtained, right? For each data there is a class level yi. And here this problem is actually, this is the objective function and we have to minimize this objective function because this is actually the margin gap between the two boundaries actually. So minimize this one subject to this constant, and so two minimization can be obtained by knowing the unknown values in W. And there is also another unknown parameter B is to be learned. So model, actually this is the model, and for this model we have to learn unknown model parameter W and P, and this is actually the objective function. Now let's see the Lagrangian form. What is the Lagrangian form? You can recall, for the same problem Lagrangian takes the objective function and this is plus, these are the constant. Now as I already told you, for the Lagrangian optimization technique, it should be less than equals to 0. That is why we convert it into this form. So this is why negative term is coming. And so this is actually primal form of the Lagrangian, which we have already used in our linear SVM discussion. And for this here we have to know few unknown, the lambda 1, so Lagrangian multiplier to be learned, and knowing this Lagrangian multiplier we will be able to learn the unknown values of the W matrix. So it is the W matrix unknown values, and then B value also will be learned. Okay, so this is the concept and this is the primal form. Now we can convert this LP into a dual form. How we can do that? Let's see how we can do that. Now to do these things, you know some important derivations which we have already obtained to solve this problem, or regarding the constant that is required to solve this kind of LP problem or Lagrangian problem. Now one constant there, it is actually the first order derivatives of the unknown, that is the one unknown is W and another unknown is B. You already know, so this is the KKT constant that is required to solve the LP problem, right? Lagrangian problem that we have already seen. Now taking this into account, it will give you one expression. So this is the one expression, W equals to I equals to 1 to n lambda I dot yi dot xi. Now here you see lambda I is a constant, yi the value is either plus 1 or minus 1, and xi here, this xi actually it is a vector. It is a vector means this is the xi can be represented in a one-dimensional array if there are n number of attributes, then size of that array is n. So xi is actually a vector containing n components data. So these are vector, and then vector can be easily multiplied by a constant okay term, no problem. So simply the constant multiplication to the vector and taking the sum, this will give you W. W is the weight matrix that we can obtain. Similarly, with respect to another unknown B, so del LP by del B, this equals to 0, it will give you another expression. So the expression says that lambda I dot yi summation over I equals to 1 to n equals to 0. Now these two equations, 36 and 37, if we use it, then if we replace these two equations, that means here in place of W, if we replace these values, W summation of I equals to 1 to n lambda I dot yi dot xi, and then also utilize this one and then simplify, then we shall be able to come into another version of the Lagrangian, and this version of the Lagrangian, which will, okay, after a lot of calculation, you can find it is like this. Okay, so it is actually Lagrangian LP, but is replaced by W and summation of I equals to 1 to n lambda I yi equals to 0. And after little bit simplification of this one, it will give you a very compact form which look like this one. Now, so this is the reduced form. We can term that is a DLD or dual form. It is this one. Now, so there are a lot of steps required. Maybe 3-4 pages calculation is required so that you can find it to obtain into this is the simpler form. And I equals to 1 to n lambda I minus 1 by 2 lambda I dot lambda j dot yi ij dot xi xj. Now here again these are the all constants, right? Lambda 1, lambda I, lambda j value is greater than equals to 0, and yi is a plus 1 or minus 1. And here xi dot xj, what it does mean? Xi is a vector and xj is another vector, so it is a dot. So it is essentially a dot product of the two vectors. Now giving the dot product of two vectors, it will give you a scalar quantity, right? And so it is actually, finally, it is a scalar value. Now, okay, so this is very important one derivation. This is an important one derivation, that the Lagrangian which we know for the primal form can be reduced into a very compact and simple form, and it takes this look. Now this is an important observation, this is an important deduction we can say, and it has many consequences. I mean a very what is called a useful consequence rather. Now let's see what are the useful consequences that we are having it. Now anyway, so you know LP versus LD, but there are few certain difference between the LP and LD. The first things that you can compare, LP is in terms of W, B and lambdas. Here as you see, LP is in the terms of W, lambdas and B. So in order to have this LP, we have to know the unknown of W, B and lambda. So many unknown parameters are there. But if you come to this Lagrangian, how many unknown values are there? As you see, here only one unknown parameters, that is called the Lagrangian multipliers are there. There is no W, there is no B. Then definitely the number of model parameter that is required is reduced to only one type of parameters. So this is the one really good advantage, right? And another thing is, in this Lagrangian LP, we know what is the most complex calculation that is required there. Now here, so here is the one complex calculation. This complex calculation, why I am saying this complex calculation? This is because you know W is a matrix, right? Maybe one-dimensional matrix. Xj, it is a vector. It is also one-dimensional matrix, and product of two matrices. So product of two one-dimensional matrices. Now actually product of two vectors we can say. Now this is a complex equations. But here if you see, and there is also in addition to this, there are many other calculation also involved. So here is a calculation, here is a calculation. And this actually, this LP calculation, as you see, computationally more complex rather. But here if you see, in case of LD representation, so this is all the constant only, right? And only one, right? The vector product is involved, dot product is involved, that's all. So computation wise, if you compare LP and LD, which is more preferable? Definitely LD is more preferable. So LD has its own edge. So for the unknown number of parameters, less number of unknown number of parameters, and so far the computation cost, the less number of computation cost is involved, so far the LD is concerned. So these are the two key points that actually can influence us to follow it if we can use it. Yes, so we can use it, and then that usefulness is also simplified here so far your prediction or testing is concerned. If an unknown data it is given to you, then delta D, as I say, there is a decision maker. So that can be obtained. Here you W dot X plus B. So we can replace W by this form, and then B is an unknown, only one time parameter, so it is there. So delta D also can be obtained, but here again in terms of this multiplier is there. So LP and LD, as you see, both are equivalent because they are same, doing the same task but in the different forms. So they are equivalent and equivalent, but LD has its own advantage compared to LP in terms of computation cost and the number of unknown parameters are involved. So that is why we can use this concept, and using this concept is actually the concept, it is called the kernel tree. Now kernel tree concept came from the nonlinear input mapping concept, it is there. The nonlinear input or transformation concept that I have just discussed today at the beginning. So it is actually came from there. So kernel tree. Now, so what is the idea of the transformation? As I said that, okay, we have to have few phi transformation which can be used to, right, which can be used to transform the values from nonlinear region to linear region. Now here kernel tricks actually doing the same thing. So what kernel tricks doing? Kernel tricks tell that if your data that is there, which is nonlinearly separable, if you can use some function, this function that is phi function, more precisely we can say it is a kernel function. So if we use this kernel function, then this kernel function can automatically convert from the linear region, nonlinear region to linear region. Now again you see what phi function is there. So far our nonlinear input mapping is concerned, here the kernel function is coming into the picture. Now another point, another very important point, as I said, that okay, how we can apply the transformation function or phi function? We can apply if we know what should be the form of a hypersurface. That means what is the linearity form or what sort of nonlinearity are there. So far the boundary that is required to distinguish the two regions. So if we can start from the back, but here kernel will start from the front itself. That means the data that will be given to you, you can test with this kernel function, and your test, if it is in favor of you to do it, then use that kernel function to use and then solve your problem. I repeat it again. So here the kernel function concept can be applied from the front. That means transformation function we can apply it, but we can apply on the data that is given to you. This is your input data. So what you can see that you can consider a kernel function, say K1. Apply this kernel concept, and if this kernel gives the result in favor of you. Now you can tell me what do you mean by the result in favor of me? I say the result in favor of me means your classification accuracy is better. So if you can use this K1 transformation function to your data, and if it gives you better result, then you should be very happy that okay, this is my kernel function to be worked with my data. If it is not, then another kernel function you can try, and so on. So if there are suppose 100 kernel functions are there, then what you have to do, there is no policy available or no algorithm or no intelligent techniques are available, but you have to try out with K1, then K2, then K 50, then K 100, and then you check that which kernel giving better result. On the other hand, if you are a little bit experienced data scientist, then you will be able to knowing from your data quickly that okay, my data can be fitted with this kernel and use it. Anyway, so what I want to say that one phi transformation is to be device which can help you to transform your data from linearly non-separable region to linearly separable region. Exactly the kernel concept is doing the same thing. That means your kernel function to be find out and this kernel function to be used so that you can solve this problem. Now, so this is the concept of kernel, or rather it is called the kernel tricks, because we just use some mathematical treatment here. Now let us proceed about what is the mathematical treatment again. Again repeating the same example. So if this is your linearly non-separable data and this is your boundary, then we can transform, this is your kernel function. So transforming all the data, so this is the another type of data and this is the another class data. So this phi function will be transformed you, so that is your kernel, and then this is actually the nonlinear linear boundary that you can think about based on this transform function. So these are concept very same as the Z transformation or phi transformation or nonlinear input mapping concept, it is there same, but here just I use another terminology called the kernel terminology. Now here is an example so that you can understand this concept better, how they are equivalent. That means this problem that is in a linear domain and this non-linear domain, and this is the linear domain, how the two problems are equivalent so far this kernel is concerned. Now let us see one example so that you can understand. Say suppose you have given a 2D space data and you transform by your kernel into a 3D data. As I said that the Z transformation or nonlinear mapping will usually increase the dimensionality bit there. So here if your data can be classified by this classifier in R2 space, then the same data can be classified by Z values data in R3 space. So the dimensionality from the 2 to 3 is increased here. Now here again this transformation is there. What is the transformation? Again coming to this expression, say this is your, say suppose this is your nonlinear boundaries, and here we use this is the kernel 1 and this is another kernel and this is the another, right? Okay, so overall this is the kernel tricks that you can apply it, and then we can transform this from X dimension X region to Z region, and that is your kernel function phi, I can say. Now as an example here, what we can do is that in this case this is the nonlinear form, and after applying this concept here to this one, then it will give you a linear form which look like this. Okay, so this is a linear surface it is there which takes this form actually, but it is in R3, that means higher dimension region. Earlier w dot x plus b equals to 0 in R2, so now it becomes w dot z plus b dash in R3. So here same linear SVM can be applied, but we have to do this kind of kernel tricks concept, it is there. Now let's see how the two things are equivalent. Here again, so far this classification is concerned, they remain same. As you say, this is actually delta x, this is the decision maker in x dimension, the decision maker in z dimension, because x is now to be converted into z type, the data in the x values needs to be converted in the z values, right? So here this is the transformation and here the transformation. Now you see xi is converted in the phi xi and x is converted in the phi x. So this is actually remains same actually, because it is a dot product of the two function values, it is there. And then the model that we can have it is actually your Lagrangian Lagrangian, that is dual form, we can use it, but it is in dual form so far in lower dimension is concerned, the dual form in higher dimension is concerned. So as you see, the step that is required, the routine that needs to be followed, they are remains same, and then moreover they are also equivalent with respect to another concept it is there. I will tell you that how this concept it is here. As you see here, how the xi dot xj and phi xi dot phi xj, which we have used here, they are right equivalent actually. Then we can understand that, okay, so if this give this decision and this also will give the equivalent decision, then we can understand, right? Now let's see how this actually it is here. So here from R2 to R3, this is the transformation that we have used it. This means if your input data, one input data is in X region and another input data is in X region, and then after transformation phi X, the data in 3D space will be represented by another. So this is actually this data and this data is this data, right? So the two values are there. I want to just explain how xi dot xj and phi xi dot phi xj are equivalent. Equivalent means they are effectively the same thing. Now here, if we take the dot product of the two values, let us consider the dot product of phi xi dot phi xj. So here the dot product of two values here, as you know, two matrix, so we have to take the matrix product here, and if you do the matrix product, finally you can see the ultimate result that you can obtain this one, xi dot xj square. Now here you can see how the two things are equivalent to each other. So if one is 4, then another will be 16, or another will be 25, then another will be 5, like this one. So equivalent is actually they are equivalent, or they are proportional, or they are highly correlated. Highly correlated, only that the magnitude of the values may be a little bit different, or maybe different, whatever, but their consequent, the effect remains same. So they are the two equivalent things are there. So that is fine, right? Now it has another physical implication. Now what it does mean that xi dot xj or phi xi dot phi xj, what is the physical meaning of these two dot vector? To understand this concept, I can tell you that xi and xj, they are the two vector in x space. Similarly, phi xi and phi xj, they are the again two vectors. They are the two vectors but in another space. So it is x space to z space, right? Now, so xi dot xj or phi xi dot phi xj, effectively they are the product of two vectors. Now let's see what is the meaning of product of two vectors. You can think about it. Now, product of two vectors that can be obtained, and based on which this concept, the kernel-tic actually is okay, more easily understandable. As you know, x if it is a vector and y is a vector, then x dot y, this is called the dot product, and dot product is also called the cosine product also, cos product also. What is the meaning of that? X dot y here. So if this is a x vector and if this is another vector, then the product of two vector can give you this form. X, that is actually what is the magnitude of the two vector. So every vector has its direction as well as magnitude. Y is also magnitude, and cos theta. What is the theta angle coming here? Theta is the angle between the two vectors. Theta is the angle between the two vectors. So here this is actually the theta. Theta is the angle between the two vectors. Now here, so x dot y actually is x into y cos theta, or we can say x dot y is equivalent to the cos theta actually. Now the cos theta is the angle between the two vectors. Now if the two vectors are identical, the two vectors are identical means they may have different magnitude, but they are of the same direction. Then in that case theta equals to 0, and then cos theta has the maximum value and it is actually 1. So in that case, the two vectors, if they are identical, then x dot y, it will give you highest value. On the other hand, if the two vectors are perpendicular to each other, right? then the theta is 90 degree, and in that case cos 90 is 0, and then x dot y has the least value. And as you know, theta will vary, the magnitude will vary from 0 to 90 degree, or it can be vary from 0 to minus 0 to 360 degree also. But as you know, they have the similar of one quadrant to another, so negative or positive value, whatever. But the idea it is that the cos theta value will vary from 0 to 1. Its magnitude, I should say, vary from 0 to 1. And then the highest to lowest value it is, or lowest to highest value 0 to 1, right? And so this actually gives you the similarity measure. So that means if the two vectors are parallel, they are very similar. If the two vectors are perpendicular or orthogonal, then they are very dissimilar. So the two vectors are similar or the two vectors are orthogonal. That is the concept, it is there. So x dot y eventually gives a similarity measure. I repeat, x dot y, the cross product, the dot product of two vectors gives the similarity measure. And this similarity measure, if it is equivalent in terms of phi x dot phi y, then that is okay, that is good, and then very useful information for us. What I want to say is that if x dot y is a similarity between the two vector x and y, then phi x dot phi y, they are also giving you the similarity between the two vectors x and y. As I said, x dot y and phi x dot phi y are equivalent. So from the equivalence relation is concerned, x dot y and phi x dot phi y, they are effectively the similarity measure of the two vectors. So how the two vectors are similar, that we can test it by taking their dot product. And here is the kernel tricks is coming into the picture. Now again I can start this one here. Here is that, right? So here this is actually a very important one statement, as you see, xi dot xj and phi xi dot phi xj, they are equivalent, and they both of them gives the similarity measure of two vector xi and xj. And this similarity value, let it be k into xi xj. That means here k actually is a similarity measure. So k is a similarity measure. Now what is actually the final conclusion from here? The final conclusion is that xi and xj, given two vectors which you want to test, what you can do is that we can see if there is any kernel functions available, so that this kernel function will return the value which is effectively the cosine similarity of the two value xi and xj. Now whether they are in a lower region or they are in a higher region, right now we should not bother about it. So kernel function, what kernel function give you? Kernel function give you for any two vector the similarity measure. This also has another consequence, is that we don't have to do any dot product or any transformation, only apply the kernel on two vectors and then got it. And this is the turning point, and this is actually the concept of kernel tricks that come into the picture. Now here again, in terms of kernel tricks that we have just now learned, earlier as you see, so far our decision maker is concerned, there is xi dot xj. So what you can replace is that we can replace it by phi xi dot phi xj. The same can be replaced by k xi dot xj, because this is same effect wise, this is same as xi dot xj, phi xi dot phi xj. So this become your classification model then. Now here you see your classification model needs unknown parameter b, and one the kernel computed value k. So if you know this kernel function k, then you will be easily able to know what is the kernel computed value for any two vector xi. So here we can replace the dot product by the kernel computed value. But before that, we should know which kernel can be fitted into this your problem. And that is actually your problem solving. So far your Lagrangian multiplier method is concerned to solve it. But here again, this Lagrangian solving can be in terms of only kernel one there. So altogether everything here which the problem can turn into in terms of kernel functions are there. Now here the question that coming into the picture that what are the kernel functions or how we can find which kernel function is applicable to my problem. Now that question needs to be answered thoroughly. So I will be going to give the answer to that question again. Now first of all, and another thing is that what is the advantage of having this kernel? Already you have noticed that one advantage is that we don't have to do the actual transformation that needs to be done so that the nonlinearity can be addressed. So we don't have to do any nonlinear input mapping like this. But we are doing actually this nonlinearity input mapping because we want to apply the linear SVM. Again, I am telling you, the linear SVM can be used to solve the nonlinear SVM problem. So this is another advantage that you can have it. So no need of any nonlinear input mapping is required, and we can solve the nonlinear problem using the linear SVM only. So the two advantages there. And third advantage, which is the most significant advantage to my understanding, it is the cost of computation. We will see that the cost of computation can be reduced like anything, and that is the boon of this support vector machine to be considered for classification technique. Now let's see how we can save the cost of computation. Although I have already told you cost of computation means it is a dot product, right? And here we don't have to do any dot product. That is what, okay, fine. But how we can doing these things? So let us first proceed with. So this is actually suppose your input data. So X is actually your training data set. Now here training data set consists of one data X1, X2 and Xn. Now as you know, so this is actually the data which you can store in a matrix of n cross n, where if the n number of, if the training data size is small n and the total number of attributes by which your data is defined is capital N. So this is actually the matrix. It is actually matrix in the form of a table, right? So this is the first vector, the second vector, the nth vectors are there, and each vectors are defined with capital N dimensions are there. So it is actually an n cross n matrix. So this is the input data that I can tell, and this data in support vector machine literature called the design matrix, because this is the input matrix that I can use to design my support vector machine. Okay, so this is the design matrix. So there are another matrix, it is called the gram matrix. Now let us see what is the gram matrix. I hope design matrix concept is clear to you, right? So design matrix is essentially the input data matrix which needs to be stored in the form of a table or is a two-dimensional data. Now let's see what is the gram matrix. Now as you know, in case of support vector machine calculation, lot of dot product is involved. It is called xi dot xj for any ith vector, right? And then any jth vector, and then we need the dot product. And in your calculation, which two vectors are to become under the radar of dot product, that you know. So what is the procedure it is? The procedure is that xi should be, right, computed with any other vector that is available. For example, x1 can be computed with all vectors, x2 should be computed with all vectors, and if all these computation you can store, then we can store them in the form of a matrix. It is called the gram matrix. Now here is the gram matrix that I can tell you. Here you see xi dot x. So it is xi and xi, x1 and x1 dot product, x1 and x2 dot product, and this way x1 to xn dot product. And here any right entry actually xi xj. So this matrix will store all dot products calculation. Those are possible for n number of training data that is given to you. And further you can see, so if this n cross n is the total dot product, actually it is not required. Only the half of this is required, because this and this are the mirror image of this one. So only this portion of the data, calculation is required. So only one diagonal matrix is required to be computed. So not that n square computation, rather we can say n square by 2 computation is required. Now if we store all these dot products result into a matrix, then that matrix is called the K matrix, or simply called the Gram matrix. So it is another matrix that we can store, and it is essentially a 2D matrix, we can tell. Now here again you see we are discussing about dot product only, but I told earlier we don't bother about dot product. What we can do, we need only the similarity measures. So I can easily convert this Gram matrix K, which store the dot product value, but instead of storing this dot product value, if I know this is my kernel function, and then for this kernel function for any two vector xi and xj, if I store this data into this xi here, right, then I can convert this Gram matrix, but not storing the dot matrix values computation, right, but rather in the K values. So knowing this K or kernel function, we can have the Gram matrix which will store the K computations, and these K values actually will be used here for your classification tasks, right? So classifier will need only the K values which can be obtained from the Gram matrix. This Gram matrix can be obtained from the design matrix, because it will tell you what are the different product that needs to be stored. Corresponding to those product, what is the K values or kernel values to be stored. That's all. Okay, so your classification will be there, and you see in this classification I equals to 1 to n, for those lambda i's which are non-zeros, those calculation will be required. Again you see the cost of computation only for not all I values or all n, right? So there is no n number of product that is required there in the summation terms, only few one. As I said, you can recall very beginning I told that these are the lambda is values for which support vectors they are called, and how many support vectors, the 5 to 10% of the training data. So if it is n is 100, maybe so 5 to 10 number of products are involved, and their summation needs to be calculated, and for there the K value needs to be considered, and that is why it is there. So from the Gram matrix, only few calculation that needs to be utilized in your classification model for your given data, and then you can use it. And so it is computationally so simple, it is so effective and very simple. Only in case of computation, as you know, unknown parameters are lambda i's, that is the Lagrangian multiplier, and then b value, the constant. This is the one-time computation. Unknown parameter, once it is known to you, and then the Gram matrix you have developed it, and then you can use this, right? You can consult this Gram matrix to decide the fate of an unknown or test data in which class it belongs. Now here the main problem that still remain unanswered is that what is the kernel function are to be there. What are the kernel functions? I said that there are many kernel functions are involved in the literature. Around 50 or so many kernel functions are there, but there are few kernel functions are very popular, and most of the time the data that is given to you can fit with. I have listed here around 6 kernel functions. One is the linear kernel. They are simply the nonlinear actually, because they are not doing anything, just simply transform linearly. Another is the polynomial kernel of degree rho. The rho value needs to be understood for your data. There is some methodology by which rho can be computed. once you know the row, then you will be able to calculate the kernel value, which actually following this representation. And there is a Gaussian RBF. It is called the radial bias kernel, very popular kernel, which takes this form. Okay, it is the Gaussian kernel. For this kernel, C and sigma square needs to be calculated. Again, there is a methodology how the C and sigma square can be calculated. There is another kernel. It is called the very popular kernel. This is called the Laplacian kernel. For this Laplacian kernel, unknown parameter lambda to be learned. Another kernel is called the sigmoid, which takes this form tan hyperbolic tan, it is beta 0 and beta 1. And then another is that statistical kernel. It is called the Mahalanobis kernel, which has this form. Here another function it is required called statistical function a x minus y. Now what I said that there are few popular kernel functions. These are the kernel functions and these are the function form. And for each function again some unknown parameter. It is called the hyperparameter call. Okay, in any classification technique, hyperparameter needs to be chosen. So these are hyperparameter. And for your data, the hyperparameter takes one value. For other data, hyperparameter takes different value. So you have to, there is again technique for which hyperparameter can be chosen. Actually, basic idea is that hyperparameter should be chosen by trial and error method. I can take this value, test the result, getting it, and if I am happy with the result, then I can go ahead with that. If not happy, then test with another value, it is there. Similarly, which kernel that needs to be applied, try this one, then this one, and so on, and we can do that. So this is the concept of kernel functions are there, and few kernels as you see. This is an example of polynomial kernel because here your nonlinear form it is look like this, right? And if it is there, then the polynomial kernel you can apply to your data. Similarly, if your data, the nonlinearity in this form, right, then sigmoid kernel you can apply. The Laplacian kernel, if the data of this kind of, right, so here is a common, right, this or so that nonlinearity is there only. That means here the nonlinearity is applicable. So in that case, Laplacian kernel you can apply. And this is the one example which I gave earlier also. This is an example that I took. It is from the Gaussian RBF kernel. That means it is a convex kernel. And then we can convert if it is this Gaussian RBF. If we apply it, then these are the k values that we can give it, right? And then we can use this one. So there are many kernels that we have it. And then using those kernels, we can apply it there. And one advantage, again, I said that thereafter, right, whether there is a decision for my data, whether I should use the linear SVM or nonlinear SVM. Nonlinear SVM is equally applicable to data which are linearly separable as well as linearly not separable. So in terms, it is only the nonlinear SVM to be applied to your problem to classify your data. That is what the most important thing. And so, and nonlinear SVM is nothing but linear SVM actually. And as you know, the binary class classification, what you can use that OVO or OVA strategy. Similarly, nonlinear SVM, right, you can also apply to classify your data, whether they are multi-class classifiable data or simply binary class classifiable data. Okay, so this is the concept of linear SVM as well as nonlinear SVM that I want to give it, want to discuss it to you. I hope you have understood, and this is my submission for today. And if you have any question, I have already taken extra time, 10 minutes or so. Anyways, okay, fine. If you have any question, please